Hello, welcome everybody to Spire's webinar on the evolution of the private security industry. Let's just give everybody maybe a couple more minutes to join in. I see some people trickling in. And I think we should be able to start in just 1 minute's time. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining in for today's webinar. Today we'll be talking about the private security industry, its evolution and the impact that COVID-19 has had on it. The security industry really has gone through quite a lot of pressure. So the threat, its nature has grown. It's not just we are trying to keep our assets safe, but with the virus, hygiene has become a factor. The need for information, tracking, tracing people has become a huge requirement as well. So we're seeing that the problem is now evolving. On the other hand, we also there are restrictions in movement. So the resources that the security companies have to work with are now sort of getting curbed down, or they're under pressure. So that puts this in a very unique sort of situation. Add to that, global trends say that this industry still is growing, and it's a healthy 5 to 6% that it's growing in. So given this environment, I wanted to welcome you and our speakers today, who will be shedding more light on this very unique situation, very unique trend. I have with me Imran. Imran is one of our consultants here at Spire Research and Consulting. Imran, along with us here, monitors key trends, market opportunities, not only in the Southeast Asia region, but also globally. We also have with us Ian Stewart. Ian Stewart is the CEO at Security Risk. Security Risk is a leading organization providing technology solutions for the private security industry. We've worked with Ian on a couple of consulting projects, and the suite and the range of products and solutions that he's offering along with his company, I think are very, very interesting, very compelling. It's a pleasure to have you here, Ian, because you'll be able to share experiences and observations that you have with clients all over the world. So I think it's a very good perspective. Welcome. We also have Josef Guetta. Josef is based in the Philippines, started his career with the Israeli Defense Force, and for the last 30 years, he's been managing a private security company by the name of Business Profiles. Business Profiles has about 1,000 guards, so that's a fairly large resource to manage, and over 50 accounts all over the Philippines. The company does, crisis response, asset management, investigation, due diligence, a fairly wide range of offerings as well. Josef, welcome to the team. Welcome to the webinar. Lastly, I will introduce myself. I am Japnit. I am the CEO of Spire Research and Consulting, and I'll be moderating today's event. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to hand over first to Imran. Imran will be talking a little bit about, really to set the scene, about the private security industry in general. What are some of the macro trends that we're seeing on how the market's moving? Some of this that we'll be sharing are lessons learned from our engagement with Ian and the work that we've done for him. Over to you, Imran.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So as Japnit shared earlier, what I'll be sharing with you today is to briefly introduce the evolution of the private security industry and the impact brought upon by COVID-19. So as we look at the private security industry, we see and identify a few key statistics and highlighting how lucrative and insightful and growing this market is. So the industry now is valued at US 240 billion. Our estimates place it to be reached 257 billion within 2 years' time in 2022. The industry as a whole is experiencing annual growth rates of over 6%. As we dissect this growth in the industry, we see that the Asia Pacific region actually represents one of the high growth regions. China and India in particular are standouts. China with its Belt and Road Initiative and its high investments in tech and production actually is very exciting for this security industry space. And India, on the other hand, is experiencing the largest growth in any security market across the world with an estimated growth of 20% year on year. Over the world, there are over 20 million licensed guards who come from 200,000 companies. And an interesting point to note here is that across the world, in half the countries, private security officers actually outnumber local and national police. So as we look at it, the role of the modern security officer has evolved over the years. Initially, it was stuck to traditional man guarding, but now the role has evolved far beyond that. So now security officers perform functions of VIP security, surveillance, both on location and in remote sites. They perform traffic management functions. That is something we could notice in Singapore, among other countries. They also perform escort services, escorting large physical assets to banks, etc. And we also see security guards engaging in physical asset management. They also assist and coordinate with law enforcement increasingly as they outnumber national and local law enforcement in many countries. And an interesting role that has recently evolved is the role of visitor management. This role will be explored much later in the presentation. So when you look at security workforces, it calls a key question: how do you manage your workforce? So essentially, workforce management tools should serve 4 functions. They should manage the workforce, so managing the number of guards you have, managing which sites they are located to, and what they do in these sites. It should be able to monitor your workforce, so what is a guard doing at a certain point of time, at which location. It should assist with the coordinating of your guard workforce. And lastly, it should assist with administrative and logistical functions. So with the private security service, you see a large amount of equipment being handled. So this ranges from firearms to temperature screeners, which are very common now. So this assisting in administrative and logistical function has become much more important in recent times. So we see 3 primary tools how companies are using to manage their security workforce. The first tool is pen and paper methods. Secondly, we have WAN-based systems. And thirdly, we have smart security solutions. We will delve deeper into these solutions as we go on. So when we talk about pen and paper solutions are manual solutions with no digital capabilities. They are a mix of logbooks, walkie-talkies, and watchman clocks. So essentially how this tool functions, it is essentially a large notebook where security officers and supervisors note down their patrols, note down their check-in, check-out timings, and the entire shift and the patrols are coordinated through a singular notebook. Approximately 60% of global security is managed by pen and paper solutions. We see it more commonly in developing countries and small to medium security firms. It's important to understand that this tool comes with its variety of benefits and drawbacks. So one of the core benefits of pen and paper methods is that it's relatively low cost. Cost is near negligible for a notebook and a pen. It's also relatively easy to use. To train your staff to use pen and paper solutions, it requires south of 10 minutes and does not require a high steep learning curve. However, does come with its significant drawbacks. One of the most significant drawbacks it has is that it's offline. So there is no other record or trace of this patrols, the check-in, check-out timings, other than the physical logbook itself. It also has limited scale. You are limited to a singular physical location with a physical logbook. And lastly, one of the core issues we face with pen and paper solutions is that it offers little accountability for security supervisors and the clients who engage in security services. We see across the world, pen and paper solutions often result in high theft rates, high cheating rates, and high skiving rates within the guards themselves. Next, the second most common method of security workforce management is one-based systems. What do I mean by one-based systems? One-based systems are proprietary devices to record patrol checkpoints. So these are anchored in offline RFID and Bluetooth technology. So essentially what happens is guards are given a one-based tool, which they dock into RFID points along their patrol. And at the end of the shift, they actually upload this patrol data into a computer. Approximately 35% of global security now is managed by one-based systems. So some of the key benefits of one-based system is that it offers a very durable solution. One-based system often lasts north of 5 to 10 years, and it's also relatively easy to use. However, it comes with significant drawbacks because of the rigid structure it requires. It is also an offline tool with managers lacking visibility until the final patrol data is viewable at the end of the shift. It also has limited scale. Oftentimes, when we look at security sites that use one-based system, we find out that they only have 2 ones for 10 guards. And to expand your operations, you essentially require more guards and more tools. It also offers a very inflexible system for workforce management. So when we look at one-based systems, we find that they are set through a predetermined route of patrol with RFID checkpoints placed along the patrol route. However, if you were to, this is limiting as it does not allow security companies to adopt an agile approach and a dynamic approach to their security patrols and their patrol routes. Lastly, we have one of the most advanced solutions in the market presently, which is smart security solutions. Smart security solutions are offline and online software applications that employ a suite of QR, GPS, and 4G technology. At present, approximately 5% of global security is managed by smart solutions. We find industry titans such as Prosegur and Cisco employing these systems in-house, and it promotes the highest accountability for armed security. And when we look at this solution, we find out that it comes with a variety of benefits. The first being that it's, in theory, largely scalable. To expand your security operations or to start security at a new site, essentially what you need to do is go to your dashboard and create a new patrol route in a new location. So it offers an easy to use scalable solution. And secondly, it offers a simple interface for both guards and supervisors to manage, coordinate, and administer security patrols. It also, one of the core benefits we've identified is that it offers live monitoring. This live monitoring acts as a great tool for supervisors and clients to have great accountability in their security patrols and security management. And lastly, what we find with smart security tools is they often are integrated with a variety of tools, such as equipment management tools and incident reporting tools, which are more handy now. And as we step back in the industry, what we have to take note of is that the recent challenges posed by COVID-19 offer certain challenges to security management as of now. So what we find are 4 key issues. The first of which is a shortfall of manpower. So this is a two-pronged problem we face, both on the demand side and the supply side. On the supply side, because of border restrictions, a lot of the manpower needed for traditional security has fell. In Singapore in particular, we are facing a shortfall of over 30% of our security workforce. On the demand side, we see spikes of demand in a very dynamic fashion. In particular, we see spikes of demand from the healthcare section and the production sector. Secondly, security guards now operate in an evolving operating environment where they have to function in an agile and dynamic manner going forward. Thirdly, what we find is that there seems to be an extension of duties of modern security guards. Security guards don't simply perform the operations of man guarding anymore. They also engage in activities such as visitor management and capacity management in retail and business locations. And lastly, what we see is there's a reduced visibility on the supervisor's end. So traditionally, how security forces were managed is usually through a supervisor at site who can see and view the security operations and how they are being conducted. However, with safe distancing measures and lockdowns across the world, managers actually have a significant reduced visibility. Bearing in mind these four-way challenges posed by COVID-19, what we see in the industry is the next evolution for the private security industry is that it must increase its uptake of smart tools. So smart solutions are the future of security management tools because they provide a four-way benefit. For one, they allow security companies and their client to manage their workforce effectively in a dynamic and agile manner. They also allow supervisors to manage their patrols and do it in a much more dynamic fashion instead of having rigid patrol routes. They also offer a scalable solution for companies. And lastly, what we find is they offer an integrated tool for security companies to use in-house. So to share more about these tools, I'll hand over to Japnit. We'll hand it over to Ian.
Thank you, Imran. Yeah, I think the next logical step is really to hear from Ian. So, Imran, you highlighted some of the challenges that the pandemic's put, and also some of the opportunities. I think Ian, this is where you come in. Talk a little bit more about some of the innovations that you're doing, also some of the trends that you're seeing on how technology is, helping us change the game. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Japnit, and thank you, Imran. It's a good presentation and it highlights a lot of the things that we've been working on for the last 3 years at Security Risk. So a lot of these trends, there's a very slow uptake in the security industry of technology solutions, and a lot of these things that you're identifying, I think a lot of security companies are probably aware of, but not really thinking about it, and they really should be. What I've found in my experience, I've worked with companies where we've had 4,000 guards, and I've lived a lot of the problems, but based on my experience and a little bit of the research that we've just seen, these are the sort of the key points, or the key problems we see in terms of security operations from a day-to-day point of view. Operations are people-centric. You get dragged into mundane, low-level tasks. That lack of common operating environment is quite interesting. You identified workforce management solutions, Imran, and I think the monitor management, coordination, administration of how you manage your workforces, particularly with guard operations, is a real big issue. And a structured piece of software that makes it common across each area can actually have a sort of a training outcome about bringing that common operating environment and overcome some of the lack of skills or common training that you might have from either in businesses or personnel. Also, scalable businesses and repeating your success across each site is very difficult, but if you're using the same software management system at each point, that does give you an opportunity there. And that traditional era of using notebooks and spreadsheets is a big opportunity in terms of what the key issues that technology can address. So at Security Risk, we've identified a solution, and we've been implementing it, and we went to market sort of late last year. And we've Security Risk Manager platform is our software as a service. It's a cloud-based solution that also works on low bandwidth networks and offline. And I think this software as a service and cloud-based solution, but flexible online, offline, it's really important for the sort of the post-COVID world, and you having access to these remote management tools is going to be very important. And those smart solutions that aren't being used across the industry, with only 5% of companies using smart solutions, as Spire have identified, there's a real opportunity for companies to come up with some common operating environments and using some technology trends to improve their businesses. So at Security Risk, we've developed 4 products that are an aid to this. And just as a summary, this is some visuals about what they look like. And what you see here is where they're not bespoke hardware solutions. They're not like the one-based solution where you have to buy a piece of hardware that will deteriorate. This is using PCs, laptops, mobile phones, smartphones that you can buy anywhere in any country in the world, and with a suite of software that will work depending on your function, your role. Whether you're management, that's Portal. You're an operational manager or responder, that's Responder. You're an actual guard, that's Sentry, or you're a customer looking to receive services, and that's the customer app for us. So these are some of the features of that software, and I think as you go through it, you'll see that quite a few things that we've identified there address some of the research questions that have come out from Spire. And I think one of the interesting things I think is for guards and a trend is that contactless entry and management of people in and out of sites is becoming much more important in COVID, and that guard role of managing that contactless entry and that visitor management is being critically important. So that's a real trend in terms of how the industry is going. And I think the other one is the remote site management, the ability to manage things where you don't have to travel to sites as much, or you can't travel, or there aren't as many site visits that you can do. Some global security managers, for instance, will have a lot of sites in different countries. At the moment, we're not able to travel to those countries and do a check on those operations. So management tools that enable you to monitor it, they're going to be very important. This is a key slide for us in terms of how we look at it, and that 5% of smart solutions is it's a key point of where technology is really being underutilized in the industry, and there's a really, I guess, one of the things that drives that and has driven it, but will have to change as the guard roles expand as in the COVID world, is that the low literacy and numeracy that guards traditionally have, they're getting, even if they don't have a large or in-depth education, almost all of them still know how to work a smartphone. So having software that uses a smartphone is really going to be a driver for making a common operating environment in the future. So for a security risk, so a couple of things with us in our platform that addresses some of these things is that really technology needs to be solving problems, and it's about identifying those pain points and linking up some technology opportunities that do solve them. I think with our software, we've actually tested it in some very sort of out there places, as well as Singapore and Australia. And when we were building it, we really looked at how it could work in a lot of different places through companies that are very large and very small. So I think the software being operationally relevant and built by people who know the industry is pretty important. And there isn't a lot of software out there that doesn't look like it's been built by computer people. So I think Security Risk Manager is one of those things that's quite interesting. And the point I made earlier about using basic business hardware, laptops, PCs, and mobile phones is pretty important. But bearing in mind that low bandwidths that you can have in some countries can be a barrier to that, and the infrastructure across the globe isn't consistent. So even if you have a software as a service or a cloud-based solution, you still need to have the robustness where it can work offline and online. And that's going to be an increasing trend that needs to be managed by our technology solutions. I won't labour on this. This is just sort of an idea for what, just to give you some relevance about our software. Because it uses those basic business tools that every company has in their office, you can keep it quite cheap. Where one-based solutions or solutions that require bespoke hardware can get very expensive, and I think it's a big barrier for companies and clients to want to finance technology-based solutions. So just to getting into some of the challenges from COVID, I think one of the things we've done and innovated in the last year is we've added a couple of things to our software in relation to responding to what's happening in the world. So visitor management has become mandatory in a lot of countries across the world, and in a lot of countries, the software for managing this is run by governments. It's released by governments, but in other countries, there isn't so much to be able to manage it. So using what we've been seeing in that trend, we've added visitor management to our software, and it's one of the innovations we've added. And we looked at the COVID tracking apps in various countries to come up with a model that integrates it into our basic customer app and our Sentry app. I think it's particularly relevant though where governments haven't been as responsive, and then you can have a similar tool that's available for at least guard companies or clients that want to have at least some level of managing it themselves. So I think that hard to perform contact tracing using traditional methods of paper and pen isn't really going to be enough accountability. So that visitor management function has been pretty important. The other responsibilities that guards are picking up in terms of that temperature taking and safe distancing, if they're not occurring, then ability to use a smartphone and just the basic technology of a camera on it and record it and load it into an incident report is pretty important too. So some of those little functions about investigating or reporting where there's been breaches to protocols, either government or client or building protocols around COVID management are also important. And some of those challenges, there needs to be some tools that address that as well. The remote monitoring security is really important, and that the portal software that we originally developed was just web-based software, but we realised that then with COVID, there needs to be an increasing ability for that mobile management and the ability to manage things on the go. You're not going to always have access to all the tools that you want. So we've added some innovations and put our portal and our management software onto an app and given the ability to allow people to work from home or more flexible locations than perhaps they've been in before. So we don't rely on the fact that every person's going to be able to get to their control room in their security operation anymore. That higher focus on data accuracy and integrity is a key point. I think if there's contact tracing events or just in general with security, is that security becomes a point where you've identified something's gone wrong. And your first point of call is, well, what went wrong? When did it go wrong? And that digital footprint you create through a software management system that gives you an accountability or traceability or searchability of what happened is pretty important in terms of managing operations. And that kind of trend, whether you're investigating a contact tracing event or anything, is going to be pretty important going forward. So the post-COVID security operations, that real-time visibility that you can get and the accurate review and investigation I've been talking about is pretty important. So if you're automating your operations and tracking and tracing them through using software, and you have an idea what every guard and every manager is doing it at all times, then you're going to get a lot more control over your operations. And I think that's the sort of thing that people are looking for going forward. The expanded role of security and the normalisation of contact tracing and those other roles and risk management that guards now take control of, that's good, and that's an increasing trend, and it's an expectation that that stuff will be managed by guards from now on. So the ability to then prove that you've done it and record incidences around it is pretty important, and so that means the pen and paper systems just aren't going to be sufficient going forward. So the software solutions, I think, again, are the only, and using basic smartphones that everyone knows how to use is going to be pretty important. Providing your guards with the right technology is good, and it's efficient to add those if they're managing those extra responsibilities. But then training them on anything that's too technical or too hard to use is going to be very difficult. So using smartphones, which is something that in almost every country, children are handling smartphones from ages 5 onwards, and so it becomes very natural for people to be able to use these technologies. So building software solutions or technology solutions that use bespoke hardware can be potentially a weakness, I think, going forward. So just a summary for us in addressing some of those, I guess, those points that Spire have raised and looking at some of the things that we've done. Some of the things that we've adopted is, the ability to do more detailed and more oversight of visitor management, and also obviously driving towards a lot more automation of what's happening at site, and giving clients and security managers confidence that they can see what's either happening in real time or they can go and investigate, because it's a genuine record of accountability and traceability about what's been happening at their sites. So that's the sort of thing that we've been working on, and I think that's it from me. I might hand back to you, Japnit.
Thank you, Ian. That's a very, very interesting presentation. I see some questions are starting to come in the Q&A section, and we'll talk about those during our panel discussion. The features that you shared about the software are really very interesting. I am in no position to judge or to comment on them, but I know someone who is, and that brings us to the next speaker, Joseph. Joseph, as your viewpoint as a security company, as a provider of security services, and also on the other side of the table to Ian, we're looking forward to hearing from you about what are some of the trends and challenges that you're seeing in your line of work, how COVID has impacted you. Over to you.
Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you again to let us, my business and me, to be here in this webinar. Yes, I've been, as I said, I've been since 1974 in the security business again. I think since March, when we entered to the quarantine and the pandemic situation here, it was like March 15, 16, we really faced some things coming in. Again, to everyone was like, when I say it was big question mark, how are we going to address this issue? How long that issue will be controlled, will be managed? It was a big question to everyone. But what I will go to myself, I say, okay, I'm operating in 3 big islands of the Philippines. I have over 1,000 people operating nationwide. I have my own team of business profile doing a lot of investigation, intelligence, managing travel, management for clients. Aside from I have 50 accounts to manage, it's a critical infrastructure. We have manufacturing, we have hotel, malls. How am I going to address? I'm going to deal with each client separately. Each client has a different business culture, different, how they call this, nationality when you're dealing with different clients. It's a little bit big headache, I call. And when I saw Imran talking about 60%, it's pen and paper. For me, if I go on the 60% pen and paper, I said, thank you so much. I'm at the age I can retire. It's not in our business. And I love the Philippines. I think I will die here. But one thing we have to remember, we are not Singapore, we are not Australia, we are not US. We are not good in technology. We are little bit suffering from not good infrastructures, not in good communication, transportations. We have a lot of natural disaster, what we faced during the COVID here. All those things will come into us. I have to look into how I can deal with those issues the next few months. I didn't know it's up to today. Nobody say if it's going to continue or not continue, what allowed, not allowed. We're in the longest quarantine and compared to everyone in the world. We don't have the exact number what's happening. Every local authority created his own, how they call this, his own rules. I have to look at the government regulation, I have to look for the locals, and I have to look into dealing with the clients. Again, before the COVID, again, I don't say it's easy, but technology was not on the area we really wanted and certain clients to operate. I mean, we created good CCTV monitoring. We have what I believe a lot because I'm from the old fashioned or called the traditional person who grew up in security. I love to check by myself. I like my guard, under guard force management. I like to see my supervisor visiting, consistent on the clients. I like to get the real-time reports, and I have command center 24/7. I know the number of the guards, I know the activities, I know the incidents. I think the software, when Ian was talking about, it's really good in place, cutting for my own, how to call this, on the cost and the time or the monitoring the guard force on the day-to-day. But again, I will talk that about this later. But before the COVID, again, operating nationwide, looking into a different issue, responding to different cultural, different behavioral, environment threat. It's on the daily basis. It's like I say, this is my breakfast, my lunch, and dinner. Here came the, how they call this, the COVID. A lot of things been, how they call, shift now, and how they call this, to change our standard of operations, understanding the requirement from each client. We have a lot of restriction of movement. I cannot travel to any place. My guard cannot go to work. I have to think where I'm bringing my guards into the near to the area or to near to the clients to work to save on the transportation. They can work, and also have to look into the side of the guard, the benefit of the guard. If he has no job, he has no income. No income, other issue landing on my shoulder. I have to see how the call this and my supervisor moving around. How I'm managing on the day-to-day with the client's activities. Even the client by himself cannot go to works. Lack of good communications. Clients also not understanding where he enter into. Now, I'm coming with the new technology. Is my clients can be adjust to my new technology? How he can adjust into the system? It's a lot of questions came to us in managing the day-to-day. Good, I have very good management team who've been with me for 20 years, 10 years, 15 years. It's easy it was for me to transfer that responsibility and to look into issues. What we did on the immediate response, we know each client's what his weaknesses, we know the facility, we know how the operations, we know even my guard force, how they're dealing, we know who good guard, who bad guard. I know my weaknesses on each one of them. And that's what we did during the operational change. We immediately look into how I can be a more efficient, also on the cost, because it's increased immediately my cost of operations. If I how to put this, look into the costing or I look into the day-to-day operations, I have a numbers. I have to reach my number. Ian said a while ago about managing a guard managing the goal. It's the guard managing the goal, but what about the management? I have to manage also my pockets. Yeah, it's a lot of money coming in just to make a comfortable zone for the guard to work. The clients has the same service I promised to him. I have to achieve the standards what the clients require. And that was again a little bit check for us how to deal with each client separately. That's how we did. It's like a baby. You have to take understand the clients, understand the requirement, and how to deal with him. You really tailor your operation each clients. A lot of projects been canceled. Movements I restricted to move. What we also shift into that, I say through the communications, what we upgraded our communications. I try to look into each area, have his own person who is responsible. He can handle it. Instead of my people traveling from Manila into the provinces. I build the system, people moving on the area because they're not restricted much as to move like me from Manila. I look into how to deal on the daily basis with the communication with the guard, client responsibility. And I think when I start to look, and I said again, I'm really from the old-fashioned technologies is good. Even we have the cyber department. I'm totally idiot on those type of things. For me, it's again how I respond to the clients, how I get good communications, how I get monitoring my supervisor, how I know how to call this the guard doing the job. And I think when again, I'm not going to sell you. I'm not going to tell you how your system was really in place to us. Now I know where I can say I'm monitoring my supervisor. If he can say I'm here, the system can tell me exactly where he is. If before he want to cheat on me, this time I know where he is. I know how long he stayed in my accounts. He visiting. I know how my guard works. I know where they are. I can see them also through my CCTV. I can communicate with them in real time. And I can achieve exactly what you say. I can achieve the goal of them. I can empower the guard. For me, it really was good in place. in additional to the, how to call this, our system and our requirements. That's how I seen where the technology could help us. And again, we are not stopped here. We really we looking for new technology or new way of, again, without adding it to our cost, how it can help us to make our life easier. Like I said, when Ian, you're talking about technology, I said how I can integrate that technology with my guard force, the new policy, how the clients, if the clients will agree to integrate the system with him. Again, it is my task, my guard. But if the client doesn't want to integrate the technology due to data privacy, some restriction from the headquarters, because some of them, it's the headquarters, it's in Japan, Taiwan, US, they might, because they have a different also operation procedure. And they have to understand the requirements. Not all of them, as you said, Imran, is 60% is pen and paper. They don't even know how their business environments in the Philippines. They have no an understanding how the cultural here. I have to look into all those things and to build that into my system. And I think when I look at first, I didn't look, if you look at the triangle I tried to build here, I look what technology can be in place for me, what the technology can help me to make my business better. I think to come with the human resources and the policy is the second diary for me, because I'm always building layer of security. What my layer first? How I reduce the, how do you call this, on the day-to-day activities, where the area I might face issues, where there is the social distance, where the client operating, how I can monitor on the every moment of the activities. Guard cannot go all around. Also, we reduce on the guard due to the cost of the client cutting costs. Where this technology came in, I'm saying we are very dependent on labor here in the Philippines. That's not for long, because I think when it comes to technology today, a lot of jobs will be cut due to technology. But again, technology you have to understand. You have to understand the operations. You have to understand the field, the environment. You have to understand behavior of people or worker or clients or guard. Technology can be very good, but if we don't understand the works, and I've seen a lot of technology. Again, I'm coming from a country well known in technology. Everyone tried to offer to us. I said, but you understanding what we are dealing with? Are you understanding the requirements? Technology is not we have to adjust the technology. Technology also adjusts to us to help us. And that's a lot of people doesn't understand. And that's the educations. This is where you have to educate the guard, if you educate the clients, where they can use it. Because sometimes they see the technologies as an enemy to them, because they cannot avoid anymore. They cannot pretend anymore, and they have to report. And that's where technology helping me, but sometimes they see that as enemy. And that's I said, I have to know when I'm talking about human resources, the educations, understanding, enough to put effort on the article to train them, to understand where the change. That's where, and after the policy can come in and design the policy based on the existing or where I should be upgraded. Okay. And again, as I said, what we discussed about that, as I said from the beginning, what the challenge that we have. Again, not all the clients were happy to see new technology with them because they don't want, again, they have already own system or they're very backseat, they don't want to change. Some clients really face financial problem or reduced activities. Again, also restricted area for our traveling monitoring. The information reaching our table was not sometimes on real time. I think when Ian came, I think, how to call your security risk manager of the program, and it's really helped us. I can say, I mean, I have very big, the difficulty, let's say difficulty issues. The guard or the manager still cannot understand, they cannot even report on paper. Even they have the lag inside the informations. I'm still, again, they try to digest that information, the technology. For them, still, they have the stick to check, when they're checking things, the visitor coming, the logbook, it's comfortable for them. I have to shift them that zone to technology. There is something can do better life, less effort. also cutting costs for me. And certain, if you look how much the system can cost me and how much I can cut on the end, much better have the technology. But technology versus old traditions, laborer, those things I have to consider how to work with. And that's, I think, the issue. Again, also I said, if in the, like I said, the digital, I call this like the communications, you have a lot of problem. Today I can hear you well, but a lot of time I cannot even deal with people, I cannot hear them. The internet, poor internet connections. I mean, technology is good, no communication, not good infrastructure. How it can work? This again, I'm coming from, how they call it, frustration of person operating on the field, who grew up in the field since 1974. And I see that if we not improve the infrastructure here, no matter how good the technology, and I know I have very good technology in the field, cannot help us. And that's, I think, that's the issues we are facing day to day here in the Philippines. Thank you.
Joseph, thank you for that very insightful, really an insider perspective. I know we've got some questions coming in. We've got about 13 minutes more to go for the webinar. The panelists have been very kind, and I know you've answered some of the questions already one by one. But just for everybody's benefit, I wanted to throw some of these out. Joseph, you were talking about some of the business considerations that companies need to see if the technology will fit with them. Just on that note, one of the questions that has also come in is, what do you see are some of the obstacles that prevent companies from, taking the step? I would imagine in this environment, at least in other industries, there's a lot of motivation to digitize. But in your perspective, what are you seeing as the obstacles?
I think in terms of industry or service provider like us on the guard force, I think there is a lot of room for them to absorb the technology. That's correct. And I think it is a good market. Again, how much they are willing to spend, or they really want to adapt, or because again, the margin to earn here is not so high. In a remote area, I'm not talking about Metro Manila. Is the agency willing to spend for it? For me, it's a marketing tool. If I have a good technology and I go to the client and say, that's how I monitor, how you get incidents reports in real time, the activity. Definitely, it is how they call this, good edge for me when I'm offering my services. It's a good tools, but I have to consider a lot of which other industry can work with. I'm talking about guard force management. Yes, it's very well needed. What else, as a skian, what else do you can offer to us if you understand our operations? Something can give me, again, without moving, I sit here and I can see what's happening in my facilities or different facilities in real time. That's saved me a lot, and I don't need to get report from someone. I know what's happening there if I have a good command center. Other clients say, who might get in our services? Even the visitor management, I want to have that for my guard force to manage. The client doesn't want. He wants his own system. He wants to manage. It's also data privacy. I don't want. He doesn't want us to handle those informations. It's only in the logbook. I mean, a guard can write. This person can have a authority to come in, but more than this one. That's to say, the system can be good for access control, monitoring facility. Internally, I'm not sure if I can use that software. Because again, the client doesn't want to look inside what's happening. The client doesn't want to see guard inside. Even the CCTV, if you go in a certain time when we design for a client, I design for hotel, mall, airport, certain area, it's unlimited to put the CCTV. And that's it. Even the guard cannot be there. And those things I'm facing when I'm doing the audit. I do a lot of audit, like 2 to 3 in a month, different clients. When it comes to that, I have to consider which for which one can use technology. We're up to where the technology been used. Sometimes I did one of the top 4 here company. They want the best technology. I said, okay, here. I have good access to all the technology. Here's the cost. They reduce that by 80%. And they can afford. It's just a matter to work with technology, maintaining the technology, understand the technology. Not a lot of people understand how it can help them.
Thank you, Joseph. Ian, what about you? And I'm going to try and lump a couple of questions together for you, Ian. So the first one is just taking off from what Joseph mentioned. What are some of the war stories you're hearing? What do clients say hold them back? But also, when you discuss and interact with your clients, what are some of the signs that you see that say, okay, this client is ready for more technology adoption? I mean, what are some of the trigger factors?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think Joseph summed them up. You can spend a lot of time, when I was in industry, you spend a lot of time quoting for some very expensive solutions, but they don't want to pay. And and I know that. And so I think that the cost of it is one of the biggest barriers. The other side of it is maybe the technology isn't that expensive, but the cost of implementing the change is really, that's a burden. So if you pick a new piece of technology and you want to implement it, then it's perceived that the training liability you have to implement it, or the project officer to implement that technology, again becomes a barrier. So technology people assume that it's going to be complex. So you have to design we have to show, for our software, we have to show that the technology we built isn't complex and it can be used almost by anyone in any place. So we have, for instance, an example is we went to a place in East Timor and implemented our guard software management. So we trained people in English, and they spoke a bit of English, but mostly broken Portuguese. And then their guards themselves didn't speak any of those languages. They spoke a local language called Teton. So the guard app that we have has no written words in it whatsoever. It's all iconography and all symbols. So all you have to do is find a way to explain to people what those symbols are, and then you can train them no matter what. And then the actual technology then doesn't matter what their background is. So that simple interface is one of the keys about making it anyone can pick it up and intuitively understand how it might work. And that means the training liability, the implementation aspect of it, and some of that risk associated is taken away. The other one is with technology, in particular with software, is giving a free trial. People want to get their hands on the technology and have a look. So at Security Risk, we offer a free trial. Through our contact center, we offer demonstrations of the software. People want to see what it really does. And a lot of companies out there who do the smart solutions, if you go to their websites, it's very difficult to see what their software does or doesn't do. And then it's hard to get that relevance, and they're trying to rope you in to signing on without really knowing what it is. And it's very expensive. And a lot of it's very expensive because it uses bespoke hardware. So some smart solutions will only allow you to use a locked mobile device that comes from the United States. And that doesn't really work in terms of being that cost effectiveness. So that's why we designed our software to use any mobile phone you can buy anywhere. So we tested this in Papua New Guinea. We walked into the mobile phone shop near the airport. We bought a $20 smartphone on Android, running an Android version from 2011, and our software immediately worked in it. So that's the sort of thing, the accessibility. So that means you don't have any great hardware costs. So if you can remove some of those barriers and explain to people about that the costs can be taken care of, that the training liabilities aren't necessarily that difficult, and the ability to implement it is going to be a lot easier. And then give them a demonstration or give them some hands-on free time where they can try it risk-free and see how it might work for them. That's the sort of thing we look at.
I can raise something to Ian, please. From my operation or dealing with the clients, I think today the technology is so good, and there is so many things on the market. Sometimes a lot of the company offering the new technology. Every 3 months there is something new, and today also, like, everyone has access to the internet to read what's new in the market, how it's work for them. But I see a lot of confusions. People doesn't understand that not the technical side. Sometimes it's a good words, good presentations, but when the marketing people coming to offer that program or the software, they don't understand the how they call this, the work of the company or the requirements. I think sometimes your software, I'm talking about personally about your software not matching to the client requirements. Again, it cannot tailor to everyone. It costs you a lot of money. It's a time. And until we are adjusting with the existing, we must again, new technology coming in. And again, it's another money out. When we are looking for something, we look at the long term. If I say your system can be, your system, I believe, even you upgrade, it's the basic requirement for me. If I say I'm going to work with this for the next 5 years, 7 years, your system basic and can work for me. I said, why I'm saying it's exactly tailored to the needs. I mean, I've seen a lot of other software they can do it. I mean, again, there's not 100% complete. My point here, that a lot of people who offer software, or the technology, they don't see the long range. They see that they want to sell. They don't see my requirements. They don't know how to adjust my need. When I do security design, I look from different aspects, from the environments. I look into the neighboring. I look into the culture. I look at the company for philosophy. If they really open themselves for technology, we can offer. My here, I think, is when we come into to offer to someone, I have to show them what they're going to cut on the cost. The first thing, what company want to know what I'm going to, how I'm going to cut the cost. Do I reduce guard due to this one? So sometimes you don't reduce the guard because you already on the number of guard. You need the response. You need to manage. But software can help you to be better inside to understand what your issues do you have. What guard can hide this one. The software or the CCTV cannot hide. It's documentary. It documents all the issues. I mean, you need to explain to the clients what the benefit from that. It might cost expensive, but expenses. But in the long term, it's stand for the clients. That's how people have to look at that the new technology coming in tailored to the client. That's, I think, not a lot of people know how to explain to the clients their requirements. They will buy if somebody know how to explain to them how it can work well for them. And you pointing about the guard, correct? Languages, dialects, it's again, it's witness like here. Why we cannot put the camera, body camera on the policemen? Why can document some other activity done by the police? I mean, you have to look into this one. And that's how I said, where technology can be very helpful to us, but might can be as enemy to others.
Yeah, I think, Joseph, there's a lot to be said there. I think with our technology, our software, it's a platform. So there's a range of features and capabilities. You sometimes need to step the client through, well, what do you want to use? And they may just want to use the incident management part of it, in which case the Sentry app that does guard management on sites is not relevant to them. Well, they may not actually have manned sites, but they have sites they check in on a random schedule, which again, that for us, that's not Sentry, that's Responder. That's the ability to do mobile patrols. So companies, they need to understand which capability and feature is going to be relevant to them, but then they only want to pay for those features as well. And having that conversation with them and explaining to them is definitely important.
Correct.
Gentlemen, this is such a great conversation. And, one of the signs of having a great webinar is how it ends. And I think this one's going to end just like all good webinars do, which is abruptly because we've run out of time. I know there are a few questions here. The audience, still has a whole bunch of questions. There's a lot of great points that you've mentioned, which I think the audience would be more interested to know. Once we close the webinar, there will be an email sent out to everybody's registered email, and you'll be able to connect back with the panelists and with us using that email. So please do take the time to fill out that form and send in your questions. Sure. With that, unfortunately, I'm going to have to close the webinar for today. I want to thank Imran, Ian, Joseph for their time and very valuable insights and a very interesting discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody. Thanks. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Stay safe.
Yeah.